Hello, this is Congressman Brad Sherman. We're having another one of our telephone town hall meetings for everyone in the 32nd Congressional District, which includes the communities hit by the Palisades fire, of course, Palisades, Malibu, Topanga, Brentwood, etc., and also areas in the San Fernando Valley, including areas that have been affected like Encino and Tarzana. This telephone town hall, unlike our others, is just on one subject, Palisades fire. First, a little logistics. Please write down the following number, 855-920-0548. If we get disconnected for any reason, just dial back at 855-920-0548. Now, we're going to have a lot of people joining us just in the first 10 minutes, so I'm going to say some things, and I'm going to repeat them later when we have everybody on board. If you're not familiar with the telephone town hall, it's a giant conference call. I'm going to make an opening statement, and I have a lot to cover. We've had people submit questions in advance, and in advance of our next town hall, which will be in February, and which will deal with all the issues that Congress deals with, you can go to sherman.house.gov and submit a written question in advance and RSVP. Now, if you want to ask a question, you dial *3. When you dial *3, you're going to be connected to my staff. If you have a personal question and you want some help unsnarling a problem, and a lot of people do, my staff can deal with it right here and now tonight or during business hours tomorrow. You can always come to our office. 818-501-9200 is the phone number, and we're at 5000 Van Nuys Boulevard, just 4 or 5 blocks north of the 101. So again, if you dial *3, you'll get to my staff. If you want to have a personal question, that's fine. But most people who dial *3 are going to want to ask a question, and we're going to take as many questions as we can, although we have 3 outstanding guest speakers, and I'm going to talk a little bit as well. Now, in addition, we're going to do survey questions. And you'll be able to just hit the buttons on your phone and indicate your position on a number of very relevant issues. And we'll announce those results during the town hall. So even if you don't get the chance to express yourself orally, your views will count. Now, this is, of course, a telephone town hall, and sometimes we like dealing with people in person. And you can do that every day. Starting today and certainly tomorrow at what we used to call the Westwood Pavilion, although it's now part of UCLA. This is a huge center with people there to help you from quite a number of different agencies. And it's located at 10850 Pico. And come on by. We've got a table there, and I'm hearing that an awful lot of people are being helped. In addition, if you like town halls and you want to do one in person, FEMA is sponsoring one at Sinai Temple. I want to thank my Chief of Staff, Scott Abrams, for arranging the location for them. And doors open at 6. The event starts at 6:30 tomorrow, and that's at Sinai Temple in Westwood, 10400 Wilshire Boulevard. We have a complicated governmental structure in this country. It was designed by people who feared government and governmental power, and they chopped up everything into many pieces. It may not be the most efficient, but it's what we have, and I'm pleased to see all levels of government are working well together. The federal role in this is less hands-on, particularly in putting out the fires when we start off. But the federal government has provided grants to pay state and local government for all of the firefighting costs, and I want to thank the President for covering 100% of those costs. And we provide other resources to firefighters. It was 20 years ago I was able to get the California Air National Guard 4 Super Scooper planes, and those are the kind of planes that we see dropping water right now. I was able to get us to turn over federal land to the LA Fire Department for a training facility, and that was effectuated just last month. But the biggest area where the federal government is on the front lines is in providing for the rebuilding. AccuWeather is the only one really putting forward an estimate of the costs of this in terms of all property damage. They're estimating between $250 and $275 billion. Now, sometimes AccuWeather ends up adjusting their estimates down, and I hope they do that here. That is a combination of governmental costs. I was just viewing Pali High School, and there's going to be a lot of work there, and non-governmental. And I'll get to the amount of aid that's available for individuals and businesses later in this statement. Of course, in addition to the property loss, we've had just over 20 casualties between this fire and the Eaton fire. Actually, most of the deaths have been over in Pasadena and the Eaton fire in Altadena. So, but we're going to be discovering more casualties as we go forward. I want to address a number of key issues right at the front. And the first is a FEMA letter that we know is confusing a lot of people. And FEMA has done an outstanding job, except their phraseology of this letter. If you went to the FEMA site, disasterassistance.gov, and registered and indicated that you had any insurance coverage at all, you got a letter that included in bold the words, assistance not approved. And most of you quite rightly thought, oh my God, they've just rejected me. That is not what the letter is meant to say, and I've been on the phone 5 times with the National Director of FEMA, Deanne Criswell, about this letter. They are fine. They're going to change the letter in 2 or 3 more days. They've got a computer system that just anyway. It's the one big problem that FEMA has on this. In that I've urged them to send out emails to everyone who got this letter to explain that they have not been rejected. But what happens here is if you're affected by the fire, if you're in the evacuation area, etc., FEMA will send you $770 to deal with immediate needs. But the big question, of course, is more substantial aid. FEMA can't determine whether you're eligible for more substantial aid without knowing a lot about your insurance policy, because even your hotel costs might be covered by your insurance. Your rebuilding cost hopefully is substantially and in some cases totally covered by your insurance. So instead, until they know your insurance, they don't know whether you're eligible for anything other than the $770. And my goal is to make sure that's communicated very clearly. I mentioned that people are submitting questions in advance, and I want to deal with one question that was submitted in advance by many, many people, including Gary Rubenstein of Pacific Palisades and Susan Safer of Pacific Palisades and Kate Oakland, who says of Los Angeles, but says I live in Manderville Canyon, Brentwood Hills, and they're all saying the same things. When can I get to my home to get stuff out, or when can I get to my home to live there again? Let me break this down, and it gets a little complex. There are 3 areas that you'll see on the map. One is the warning area. You didn't have to leave your home. You were just being warned. You're certainly allowed to return to your home. The second is the mandatory evacuation effort area, and that is divided really in 2 areas. The area that's outside the fire perimeter and the area that's inside the fire perimeter. Now, if you're outside the fire perimeter, nothing all that close to you actually burned, then it is my personal guess that there is a good chance that you'll be allowed to go home tomorrow. That's Sherman's guess. There is no warranty to that, and I don't make that call. Whenever you're allowed back into your home, there'll be a 24-hour period where only residents are allowed in. So you can't order a pizza. You can't invite friends over. Now, you're going to want to know whether you're in the fire perimeter area. That's identified in orange on the CAL FIRE incident page. The CAL FIRE incident page is fire.ca.gov/incidents/2025/1/7, because it happened on January 7, 2025, /Palisades-fire. That's fire.ca.gov incidents/2025/1/7/Palisades-fire. And then you can see whether you're in the fire, within the fire perimeter, or whether you're just mandatory evacuation but not in the fire perimeter. Now, if you're inside the fire perimeter, it's going to take a lot longer. And you're going to want to see, well, how can I find out what's happened to my home? They are doing evaluations of damage on every structure in the Palisades now. Most of them are complete. A few are not complete yet. But what you can do is go to recovery.lacounty.gov/Palisades-fire and insert your address and see what the and you'll get a report as to whether your home is more than 50% destroyed all the way to 0%. Now, you can also check other places that are important to you. A number of people have asked about their bank safety deposit boxes. These safe deposit box vaults are supposed to be very fire resistant, and so even if the bank is destroyed, it's possible that your safe deposit box is fine. But it's even better if the bank is not destroyed. You can put in their address and find out what the situation is. I was there a couple days ago, and it looks like the branch of U.S. Bank is fine, but I didn't check out any other banks. Now, if you're in the fire perimeter, maybe 3 or 4 days from now, they'll begin on certain streets to let you back in. They have to make the place safe. They are also, unfortunately, searching for dead bodies, and they need to do that. And the EPA has received $100 million. I hope they don't use any major part of that, just to deal with toxic substances that may be there. They want to deal with that before they let people in. So you're going to say, well, why not at least let me in to check out my own house? They were doing that for a while. They didn't have the resources. And then there's another problem that I hesitate to mention, and that is some people were taken in to look, and they stayed. They de-evacuated themselves. They walked in their front door and locked it behind them, and they were not arrested. And so they kind of ruined it for other people. Of course, the resource commitment is also very high to escort people back in. So they've got to deal with the toxic chemicals. They've got to deal with the safety of the utilities in order to let people into the fire area. I'm sure we'll get more questions on that. And then finally, I want to cover what it is, what level of help people will get. Because a lot of you have lost your homes, and obviously, first and foremost, you look at your insurance policy. But some of you are underinsured and will have very substantial uncovered costs. Some of you operate businesses in the Palisades and will have substantial business costs. The federal aid is in really two categories. The first is grants. As I mentioned, everybody gets $770 if they were affected. Then FEMA will grant you money, and you don't have to pay it back, $43,600. Now, that's real money, but it's if you're uninsured and you lost your house, it's a small part of what you need. If you get that $43,600 to help you rebuild your house or other real property, the state will then kick in $10,000. And you're eligible for a second $43,600 in grants to deal with all your non-real property uninsured losses, and that can include your cars. So that adds up to $97,970 maximum per household. Plus, in addition to this, if your insurance doesn't cover it, or this part of your insurance runs out, there is significant rental assistance while you're renting, trying to move back into your home or having it renovated. So, on the one hand, that is substantial. It'll add up to billions of dollars in cost to the federal government. But we've got to fight to do better than that, because you can't if you're uninsured, you can't rebuild your house for $43,600 or even $97,970. And that will be a fight in Congress, and you've already seen some of this. In addition, there are SBA loans. Now, these are loans you have to pay back. For individuals who have real property losses, the loan can be up to $500,000 for the real property. Then for other things, such as cars, you can borrow up to $100,000. That's a 4% loan. First 12 months are deferred payments. You don't have to write a check for 12 months. Those are good loans, but even there, you're not. It's not enough to rebuild. And I will point out that these SBA loans they will subordinate. So if you have other loans, or in the future have to get another loan on your property, SBA will stand after all the other lenders and help you get a loan from a bank. For businesses and nonprofits, whether it's for physical loss or economic injury loss sales, they'll loan up to $2 million, 4% interest if you're an entity that can't get a real bank loan. If you could have gotten a loan elsewhere, they're going to charge 8%. Again, it's deferred for 12 months. So that, I think, covers everything that I think has to be covered right at the beginning. We're going to cover a number of other issues as we go by, including taxation and postal issues, some things about evacuation and return. But before we do that, let's take our first question. Scott, who do we have on?
Okay, Congressman, we have David from...
Oh, hey, Scott, before we go forward, some of you joined us mid-town hall and may have just joined us in the last 5 or 10 minutes. You can dial *3 if you want to ask a question, or if you just want to talk privately to my constituent service staff. So if you want to ask a question or make a comment, you dial *3. Scott, who's our first one?
Yes, sir. We have David from Topanga with a question about returning home. David, you're on. David, are you there?
Yes, I am. So, hi, Congressman. Thanks so much for taking my call. So the question I have is, I think you addressed it a little bit in terms of when can we reoccupy. So the concern I have is when we listened to the briefing today, they had also referenced increased Santa Ana winds coming, and I was wondering if they were going to hold us out of our home until the next bout of Santa Ana winds was going to come and go. So
we're going to have Lonny Olson on later, but it's my understanding that the big wind event was last night until about 5 or 6 this afternoon, a couple of hours ago. Now, that doesn't mean that there won't be additional winds, and your weather information may be a few hours more recent than mine, but that's why I had to say that as far as people outside the fire perimeter getting back, that was my guess. So I'll be recognizing Lonny a bit later, and you'll want to stay on and see if he can give us any more. He will not be he won't even guess at a time you can go back. I'm a little less constrained by bureaucracy, and that's why I gave you a guess. But he can certainly tell us, and we'll make sure to ask him whether we expect major wind events in the next 3 or 4 days. As long as people talking about going back, let me give you a little advice of what happens when you do go back. You should take photos and notes regarding any damage before you begin cleaning up, because you want to show that to the insurance company. When you're cleaning, you're going to wear protective clothing, including a long sleeve shirt, long pants, work gloves, sturdy, thick-soled shoes. I'm told cotton is best for this. You're going to want to wear a K95 mask. I thought with COVID we would throw some of those away. I kept mine. And you want to limit your exposure, and you want to wet down the debris to minimize the risk of breathing dust particles. Of course, if you've got asthma or COPD or other lung conditions, you're going to have to take additional requirements. Also, if you go home, be aware that FEMA may contract with private companies to provide housing inspections after the fire. If there's an inspector, they'll call or text you, probably from an area code you've never heard of. And keep in mind, these inspectors are never going to ask you for money, and they will have a badge to identify them as a FEMA inspector. So I don't, and I probably reiterate in this call, not to fall for the scams that we're already beginning to see. Let's take one more question, and then we'll go to our first guest speaker.
Okay, Congressman, we have Mike from Tarzana with a question about rebuilding. Mike, you are live.
How are you? How are you doing today?
Hi, Mike.
Hi. So with the new upcoming administration being more aggressive towards California, what steps are you going to take to make sure that we can get federal funding to rebuild? Because this seems like such an enormous amount of money, and, you know, the president, our future president, has already said that he's, you know, not necessarily interested in helping California. So what are you going to do to ensure that we continue to get federal money?
Well, I'd like I got to back off the word ensure. I do not control the federal government. I am 1/435th of one part of the legislative branch. Yeah, I will be fighting to do what has been done for every other community hit with a federally declared disaster, and that's get the aid without this being some sort of federal takeover of a whole lot of local decisions. I can't tell you exactly. I mean, I don't believe there should be any such, quote, conditions. Would I vote no if the conditions were incredibly reasonable? Well, I have to look at them. But the whole idea of conditions seems like a bad idea. There's also linkage, which is different. What I use the term condition to mean something that California has to do, somehow allegedly relevant to fire, inside its own state in order to get the money. There's also a linkage where you put the disaster relief in with another bill. Now, Congress has done that often, but only with relatively non-controversial bills. Like we should be passing regular appropriations bills. We have ended up passing a lot of continuing resolutions. But anyway, that's how the federal government is funded. Everybody who doesn't want a government shutdown ends up voting for it. If you were to attach aid, if you were going to attach aid to a bill that most of us are all going to vote for anyway, okay, it's a linkage, but it's a linkage I can live with. If instead you're going to link this to something that's highly controversial, such as the debt limit, going to have to look at it more closely. The key thing for us is, I mean, I think we're all increasingly familiar with President Trump. He is very, very influenced by national public opinion. What do the polls show today? And so we have to reach out to this entire country and say, we voted for Katrina aid, we voted for the Hawaiian aid, we voted for aid to Louisiana, where Speaker Mike Johnson is from, not only Katrina, but also in the year 2020, where they were hit with 4 different hurricanes. And now it's time that the state that contributes so much to the federal treasury gets help in its hour of need. Now, before we go to our first guest speaker, we're going to have one of our survey questions. This is survey question A. Oh my God, and it's exactly relevant to the last questioner. In past disasters, Congress hasn't imposed conditions, they just provided the help. Should Congress impose conditions on aid to California so that Washington makes decisions about California land management and California water management? So if you think that there should be conditions, contrary to me and the last questioner, press 1. If you think there should not be conditions, press 2. And if you're unsure, press 3. And so now let's go to our first guest speaker, Lonny Olson, and I know he'll want to tell us about he'll want to tell us about the wind situation and the expectations for the fire. Let me point out that Lonny has been in firefighting since last century and is the regional and is the Western Operations at Deputy Chief for Western Operations at the California Department of Forestry and Fire Protection, CAL FIRE. Lonny?
Good evening, everyone. Lonny Olson with CAL FIRE Incident Management Team 2. CAL FIRE Incident Management Team 2, along with Los Angeles County Fire Department, LA County Sheriff's, Los Angeles Police Department, and Los Angeles Fire Department, form your unified incident command team for the Palisades incident. I'll give a little backdrop on the history of the fire and what led to this event. Then I'll give you some statistical numbers on where we're at as of this evening, and I will speak to some of the questions regarding repopulation. So the fire started on January 7th around 10:38 in the afternoon in a red flag condition and under that warning. At points within that...
Lonny, you said afternoon. I assume you meant morning?
Correct, I'm sorry. 10:38 in the morning.
Good.
It was a red flag conditions during the initial evening firefight. We had winds upwards of 90-plus miles an hour. That led to some extreme fire conditions. You can imagine if you threw a bunch of fire embers in the air in a 90-mile-an-hour wind, how that would spread it throughout the community. And that was kind of the condition that the firefighters that were first on scene. Many of our experienced firefighters with 20-plus years on the job had not seen fire conditions like that in their careers ever. Within that, our firefighters ended up having to work well over 48 hours straight in a shift during that initial firefight. As of this evening, we have 23,713 acres burned. It is at 21% containment, and we have over 5,000 personnel actively assigned within the suppression on this fire. For the structure estimate, we are at about, our estimated structures destroyed is about 5,316. Now, the number that we're using there is looking, it's like an IR flight that looks at it, and it is an estimate. Understand that picks up just about everything, whether it is a residential, a shed, and it could be vehicles even. It's a very high-level look over the fire that gives us that estimated number. Confirmed number as of this evening for residential structures is 2,340 that were confirmed destroyed. Onto the repopulation piece. Some of the concerns with the repopulation piece, or the things that we are looking at, if everybody can reflect back a couple nights when the offshore winds subsided and we got the onshore winds back in the Manderville Canyon area, we had a flare-up. So those are some of the things that we're waiting to see. So although the red flag this evening stopped at 6 o'clock and our east winds are expected to end sometime tomorrow afternoon, that onshore flow will return, and we need to evaluate that wind test and make sure that our lines are going to hold, as well as evaluate what the effects of that are going to be with the oncoming next set of Santa Ana events that are coming for next Monday, Tuesday time frame. With that, we are going to be holding an in-person community meeting at 10400 Wilshire Boulevard in Los Angeles at 6:30 tomorrow evening. And if you're unable to join in person, you will have a virtual option. If you go to YouTube and search CAL FIRE Team 2, it will pull up the virtual meeting that you can listen into. For those coming in person, we will have cards available when you make the entrance where you can write questions, and all of the speakers will have the ability to answer those questions in person. For up-to-date...
And Lonny, that location is known as Sinai Temple. I mentioned it earlier, and I hope an awful lot of people here can join us. Doors open 6 o'clock. Event starts at 6:30.
Yes, and that'll have that period, and then also afterwards we will have all of our incident management team along with several elected officials and different representatives from the different departments available to ask questions after the meeting concludes. And then for up-to-date incident information, you can go to fire.ca.gov or either of our cooperating partners' websites within Los Angeles City and Los Angeles County to get that up-to-date incident information. Thank you, Congressman Sherman, for the opportunity to provide some information. End of report.
And Lonny, if I understood you, the big red flag wind event is over, but we're looking toward perhaps a reflare up of winds come Monday. Do I have that right?
Correct. Yes. As
Gotcha.
of 6 p.m. this evening, the red flag stopped, but we expect more Santa Anas this coming Monday, Tuesday.
Gotcha. And as for the survey questions, 17% of you said yes, Washington should impose conditions. 73% said no, and 10% unsure. That's 17 to 73 to 10. And let's take another question. Scott, who do we have?
Yes, sir. We have Janet from Pacific Palisades with a question about property tax basis. Janet, you're on.
Thank you, Congressman. Yes, hi, Congressman. Thank you, and thank you to you and your team for all of the assistance. It's much appreciated. I've lived in the Palisades for 21 years, and my tax basis, was based on 21 years ago. Now that our houses have burned down and we're going to be rebuilding, will we, have some help, like Prop 19, to help maintain our tax basis, or how does that work?
I'm at the federal level, and it's been a long time since I've looked at property taxes, and it's my understanding that you keep your same basis. But many people are going to want to have their property tax assessment go down because, well, the properties are worth a lot less if the structure's been damaged. If your property's been damaged or destroyed, and it's
I guess I'm talking about rebuilding after the rebuilding.
I knew this stuff pretty well in the 70s, and of course it's changed since then. I'm an old CPA, but you can arrange for a decline in value review, and your property has declined in value at least until you build it back up. And
how do we do that?
You can seek a reassessment. I sent out a mass email that dealt with, and I sent it out 2 or 3 days ago, tax relief in response to LA County fires. It's up on my webpage, and it does give you a click here to the LA County assessor. But you are asking an interesting question, and that is if your value is very low and your main focus then is to keep the valuation that you have. And when I say value low, I mean your house was beautiful a week ago. But its property tax valuation was low, and you want to keep that. I believe you do, even though it's rebuilt. But don't trust me. Deal with the county assessor, and at least I've emailed you and is up on my website. Is a place to click and get more information.
Do you think somewhere down the line, someone from your team could maybe have the LA assessor, county tax assessor, be on one of our town halls?
We certainly could do that. We'll see if there's additional interest. If I get one more question about that even mentions property tax, and the answer is yes. And while you're mentioning taxes, I want to go through a number of issues here. The California Franchise Tax Board and the IRS have done something to provide extraordinary relief, and that is virtually every filing deadline and virtually every payment deadline, except for payroll taxes, but certainly income taxes, is extended all the way till October 15th of this year. And they've applied that, it may be overly generous here, to all residents of LA County. The IRS is simply not set up to deal with portions of a county, and that makes sense if you realize that in most of the country, a county only has 100,000 people or whatever. LA is completely off the charts in terms of how big it is to be a county. So you've got the deadlines for filing and deadlines for payment extended. And this reminds me, I've got one of the questions that came in. I might as well handle all the tax stuff at once. I've got Ray Schmeckel of Sherman Oaks asking whether that extension also applies to the deadline for making a contribution to a 2024 IRA, and the answer there is yes, it does. So and I know we'll be bringing on Supervisor Horvath in just a second, but I want to cover the rest of these tax issues. Every bit of tax grant that you get from FEMA or the state is tax exempt. I covered the $43,600 increments earlier in this conversation. You can also take a casualty loss on your tax return, and I just sent out. I think I'm sending out this email first thing tomorrow. So you'll get that. If you don't get it, it's on the webpage, bradsherman.house.gov. And your deduction is going to be your loss of both personal property and real estate, reduced by your estimate as to what insurance you're going to recover. So your insurance coverage counts against you. Your FEMA grants do not. However, the amount of casualty loss you take cannot exceed the basis that you have in your home plus the basis you have in your personal property. Well, the basis you have in your personal property, your furniture, your cars, and whatever is whatever you paid for them. I'm talking about individual stuff. If you're in business, I can't cover that in this brief thing. And the basis in your home is what you paid for it, together with what you paid for home improvements. So that's a lid on what you can take as a casualty loss. If you're going to get those insurance proceeds and it exceeds the basis in your home, then you're going to have a capital gain. However, if it's your principal residence for 2 out of the last 5 years, the first $250,000 in gain, $500,000 if you're a married couple, is tax exempt. So there is some tax information, and now we're going to go on to Lindsey Horvath, our county supervisor. She's only been in office for 2 years, and God has seen fit to give her one hell of a job here. Lindsey, tell us what's happening at the county level.
Thank you very much. And thank you for including me tonight and for your partnership at the federal level, knowing that all levels of government are aligned and focused in centering the experience of those who have been impacted by this crisis. I think it makes a complete difference in how we respond. And I want to thank you, Congressman Sherman, and I want to extend my sincerest sympathies and condolences to the people who have lost loved ones, who have lost property and so much during this terrible tragedy. I also want to thank, obviously, our first responders, all who are on the front lines and are still there. We have more than 15,000 personnel stationed throughout Los Angeles County on the front lines of this fire. The response, as I said the other day, is strong, it is sophisticated, and it is second to none, and I am grateful for all who have stepped up. As far as recovery efforts from the county, the most important website I want to make sure everyone has is recovery.lacounty.gov. We're continuing to add resources to that website every day that range from immediate mental health support and prescription refill information to longer-term information that includes some of the property tax questions, regional planning questions. And just to add to the property tax question, I texted our county assessor while I was in the queue, and he indicated that you can go to his website, which is assessor.lacounty.gov. You can call his office at 213-974-3211. Or, as was mentioned earlier on the call, we have a disaster recovery center located at the UCLA Research Park, formerly known as the West Side Pavilion. And you can go there in person, and the assessor has staff on site there available to answer questions from 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. You can also...
And while that is UCLA property, it's not on UCLA campus. It's down on Pico, 1085 Pico, 10850
right.
Pico.
That's right. And for more support from the county, you can call 211. Now, I know people have experienced calling 211, sometimes a very frustrating experience. I'm proud to report that wait times are under 5 minutes, and we have very much staffed up because of the need that is on the ground, so please use 211. We also have a Department of Mental Health helpline if you are in need of mental health supports and services. We also have specially trained officials who can help in speaking with our young people. I'm particularly concerned about our children and how they will navigate this crisis. You can call 800-854-7771. Also at our Disaster Recovery Center sites, Department of Public Health is offering medication access. The LA County Registrar Recorder Office is providing vital record support, and all fees are waived. This is for things like your birth certificate, marriage license copies, and so forth. LA County Parks is hosting care camps for our young people. You can find out information about this programming for our young people at parks.lacounty.gov/care camps. I know that there have been widespread reports about illegal price gouging on everything from rent and housing options and other services. And I want to be very clear. You cannot raise the price of rent, other goods or services more than 10% for those who are impacted by this crisis. The Attorney General is focused on this issue. Our district attorney has been crystal clear in his focus on this issue. And we are making sure at the county level that we are also enforcing on a civil level. Under our declaration of emergency, County Counsel and Director of Department of Consumer and Business Affairs can and will pursue misdemeanor charges. You can report this at oag.ca.gov/report. You can also call 800-593-8222. There's a lot of information on all these websites. I'm happy to take any questions that you might have time for. And I want to once again thank you for including me here tonight. My office is here and available to help answer any questions and connect you to the appropriate services that not only you need in this time, but you deserve from your government.
Lindsey, I hope you can stay on the line. I think we'll have a question for you later in the next 20 minutes or so. But first I've got a survey question, and I want to limit this to people who are in the mandatory evacuation area. So only answer this question if you live or work in the mandatory evacuation area. The question is, have you applied with FEMA for federal assistance? And how has that gone? So if you haven't applied yet, please press 1. If you applied and you had a good experience, please press 2. If you applied and you were left confused or unhappy, not so wonderful experience, press 3, and other, press 4. So this is a question for those who live in the mandatory evacuation effort. Haven't applied, 1. Applied and it was great, press 2. Applied and it's not so great, press 3. And press 4 for other. We're going to take one more question from the floor, then we'll go on to our third guest speaker.
Okay, Congressman, this might be a question for our supervisor as well. Juliet from the Palisades has a question about the process for utilities to come back on in the neighborhood. Juliet, you're on now.
Good evening. I have a question. First of all, we're all just devastated that all of our neighborhoods have been completely destroyed. I'm in the fortunate position that our home is basically one of 2 standing in a neighborhood where 50 were destroyed. And I know of other people who are probably in the same boat. As we look to try to go back to that home where there's no power and no water because the rest of the neighborhood is decimated, what is the process going to be for that lone house standing at the end of the block, so to speak, that's still standing, but when are we going to get our public services back, given that everything between us and the center of town has been destroyed?
Lindsey, do you have some insight into that?
Yes. So for the area that is has the county as lead authority, I want to say that, first of all, we are not considering admitting people back into any areas that are in the evacuation order zones tomorrow, in large part because of the basis of this question. We have to address the utilities that are still not operating in these areas. We have SoCal Gas and Southern California Edison workers working 24 hours a day to restore access, not only just for safety reasons, but for exactly what you're saying, for those who can return to their homes to be able to safely access them. I did speak with the fire chief today, and he indicated that at least on the county side, they suspect that they will work to restore power and utility service for homes that are in the less impacted areas first, where it is safe to do so, and for an area in which you describe where there's probably a lot more destruction, but maybe a lone house or 2 standing, it may be a little bit more time because they have to evaluate what is going on in the entire area. I do know that by visiting the grounds in the Palisades, which is city-led side, there are light posts that are bent over streets. There are exposed wires. There are gas lines that need to be reconnected before they turn service back on. So there's a lot of repair work to do that I saw being done today, but I do think that it will take a bit of time. We're working to have by the end of the week sort of the order of operations in which we are doing cleanup in the county, because I know it is incredibly frustrating for people who are wanting to get back in and know know, when are we going to be able to get it back in and what is that timeline? So we want people to understand the process that we're going through, so you know what work is being done in your community to ensure that it is safe for your return. I forgot to mention on another note earlier that for FEMA assistance, I was advised by one of the FEMA staffers today at the Disaster Recovery Center that you have a 60-day window from the time the president signed his declaration. So even if you think you might not, even if you have questions about what FEMA might be able to provide you, please go and fill out that application, because if you wait beyond that 60-day window, you will not be able to access those services, even if you are qualified to do so. So please don't wait. Make sure you apply.
Now, Lindsey, you said something about because of the utilities, people couldn't get into any of the mandatory evacuation effort, or are you just talking about the area that's within that's within the burn area?
As far as the county side is concerned, and I don't know what is happening in the Palisades and incorporated city of Los Angeles area that is served by LEDWP. But as of this week, we are. My understanding is no one is being admitted back into their homes tomorrow who is currently in the evacuation order zone on the county side.
I hope in the LA City side they're being a little more generous. There are areas in the mandatory evacuation zone, particularly Encino and Tarzana, that I'm very familiar with, that are a long way from anything that burned, and I'm hoping that they'll let people in the LA City area go back if they live outside the fire perimeter. But we'll just have to see. At this point, I've got the results of that last question, and it bleeds right into our next speaker. Of those who live in the mandatory evacuation zone, 50% of you said you haven't tried to register with FEMA yet. 17% of you said you did, and it was a good experience. 26% said it wasn't such a good experience, and 7% checked other. And I'm sure as we get the as we straighten out this one letter that's confused people, that those FEMA numbers will do better. But FEMA's done an outstanding job in so many other areas, especially setting up the center that's open from 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. There on Pico Boulevard. So let's hear from Bob Fenton. You say, well, Sherman, why didn't you get Deanne Criswell? She's the top person at FEMA. She loses her job on Monday, as do all of the top people in the Biden administration. Bob is as high as you go in the civil service, and he will still be working for us on Tuesday, and will be focused on this, I'm sure, for a long time. So, Bob, what can you tell us?
Hey, thanks, Congressman, for that introduction, and more importantly, thanks for your support in pulling this together to allow us to talk to your constituents. Appreciate it. In addition to being here on Tuesday, I'm a fifth-generation Californian. I've worked for FEMA for 28 years and been in numerous disasters. So I'm here to support and help you through this recovery. And I know it could seem sometimes difficult and complex, and we want to make sure we help you navigate through our programs and all the other programs out there. So far today, we provided almost $12 million in assistance to individuals. That's over 53,000 registrations. I encourage every head of household to apply for assistance if you were impacted or in the evacuation zones. So not every member of the family needs to apply, just the head of the household. If you are, multiple renters in a house and you each are on the rental agreement, then each of you should apply. Again, go to disasterassistance.gov or use our 1-800-621-3362 phone number. The Congressman did such a great job of going through our programs. I don't want to repeat them, but I just want to highlight some of them. And he talked about the 2 grants for $43,000 600, and I just want to kind of go into each one of those, and when he talked about what they cover, the first one that he talked about was for housing assistance, and that's for repair, replacement, or lodging expense reimbursement. On the displacement assistance, we could reimburse lodging expense for up to 14 days at $273 a night. With regard to the second grant, which is for other needs assistance, and it covers losses to personal property, medical and dental expenses, transportation costs, funeral costs, and other miscellaneous expense like humidifiers and other things you need, that are critical to you. When I talk about transportation costs, really talking about cars and other things that you need personally. Also, things like if you have work tools or other things you need for work, those would be covered in there. So each of those grants are $43,600. And the Congressman talked about rental assistance. So initially, what FEMA provides is displacement assistance, which is the 14 days of reimbursement of hotel costs. As you apply in our program, and we work with you through the application process, we could give you the grant funding. The other thing we could provide, and which just got turned on last night, is we provide transitioning sheltering assistance. So specifically for those that are in shelters or those that maybe haven't worked out their insurance yet but need some help as far as staying, FEMA has turned on this program, and it provides allows survivors to stay at participating hotels. FEMA has a contract with over 200 hotels in the LA area, and rooms that we could place individuals in within those hotels. And so you don't have to apply for this assistance. If you have applied to our program based on how you filled out the application, FEMA will reach out to those eligible for this program directly and notify you by phone, text, or email. Underneath the transitional sheltering program, FEMA pays for the cost of the room, taxes, non-refundable pet fees for those hotels that are directly participating with us. Other costs such as laundry, restaurant room service, telephone, movie rental, those are costs that are not covered underneath that. TSA is a temporary sheltering program. We use hotels as a non-congregate sheltering setting, and FEMA will follow up with you every 14 days while you're in those hotels to determine further needs within our programs. And again, we can help those people or put people in the hotels, whether they're insured or not insured. And for those that are insured, we allow a 30-day window where we work out your insurance recovery to determine whether you're receiving alternate living expense and funds to provide hoteling costs for you. The other program we provide to individuals as you continue to be displaced is called rental assistance. And we basically provide rental assistance at the HUD fair market rental rate based on your family composition for up to 18 months. The first funds you get from us was 60 days of rental assistance. And then what you do is you come back and apply for continuing housing assistance if you're going to continue to need help with renting, and we do it in 3-month increments for up to 18 months. We can extend that program, and there's other programs we can do to help with temporary housing. They'll be working with your local communities and those that have been impacted by the events, and we will bring those programs online in the months ahead depending on really focus on what the need is. We have a lot of flexibility, and some of our programs we want to tailor it to what the needs of the community are. One of the key things about rebuilding is as we focus on assisting individuals, is starting to focus on how do we start setting the conditions to rebuild the community. And so one of the first things that we've done is issue a tasking to EPA to go clean up all the hazards within the burned area throughout every household. And so the mission is called the Household Hazardous Waste Mission, and they will go ahead and go house to house and remove all the hazardous materials. And these are like products such as paints, cleaning solvents, oils, batteries, pesticides, large asbestos, debris removal that's not mixed with ash, pressurized fuel cylinders, lithium-ion batteries, those type of things that pose a threat. What they will do is identify them, remove them to the curb, and then pick them up. EPA has 40 teams they're bringing in with over 500 personnel, and will be able to remove the hazards from those homes. That's really the first step to then allowing other services to come in to go ahead and take the next step, which would be helping with debris removal. And so we're in discussions with the city and county now on how best to help the homeowners affected by this event with debris removal. In past events, some homeowners are elected to remove the debris themselves. In some cases, the state or local government has done that. In some cases, the federal government has come in and using the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers and done that. And so we're in those discussions now on how best to help the community and removing the debris, so that then the next steps could be taken, which is rebuilding homes and working with the county to do permitting and start the rebuilding process. With that, I've covered
if I can chime in on debris removal, the government will be paying for removal of the debris. However, if your insurance company sends you a check just to cover debris removal, you're going to have to send that to the government. So it's free, but you can't make an insurance profit off debris removal. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to good point. Every person that enters into the government's process will get we will communicate out when when the decision's made on how to do the debris removal process. And basically what you would do is sign an agreement with us to remove that debris from your property, and sign what we call as a right of entry to allow us to go on your property and safely remove all the debris that's there. Debris removal is very costly. The Congressman talked a little bit earlier about fraud and people looking to take advantage of people. It happens a lot of times in the debris removal. You as a homeowner have an option of removing the debris yourself, or looking to one of the government organizations to move it, depending on what is best, what the decision is between state and local governments. The Congressman is correct in we cannot duplicate funding, whether government does it at any level or you as an individual does it. However, typically when we remove debris, we're not going to remove all the debris. And most insurance policies, I'd say maybe half of them have a line item in there specific to debris. If you don't have a line item, then we're not going to request that you return that funding for debris removal. If you do have a specific line item in your insurance policy, then what will happen is you can still use that funding toward other debris activities. And if that's expended and there's no funding left, then there's nothing that's a duplication. If there is something left at the end, so let's say you had $20,000 on that line item and you spent $15,000 as you started the reconstruction process, I'm removing other debris, because typically we don't take foundations or don't take retaining walls and those kind of things. Then we would take that into account and not do that. It really comes down to a duplication. If there is no duplication or there's not a line item, then it's not an issue. It's only if there's a duplication. So there's more on that as we go down that road, and we'll have plenty of discussions to talk about debris in the weeks ahead. We need to first start with taking care of you. We need to start removing the hazards, which EPA is going to start doing this next week, and then we need to get to debris removal. So with that, we will be here, and we'll continue to work with you for the long term to help you through this process. Thank you.
And we're going to go longer than we usually do in these town halls. We'll be going another 30, 35 minutes. And hopefully our vendor is listening to that and will act accordingly. We've got an RSVP written question from Amy Ayers, who is in the Encino, but the part of Encino that was subject to emergency evacuation. She asked what's happening with postal deliveries and was the power turned off by DWP. As to DWP, the best answer is you dial 1-800, dial DWP, and they'll tell you. And they'll tell you, and that's the number to call if you're within the LA city limits, which includes, of course, the Palisades, Encino, Brentwood, etc. As to postal deliveries, if you're going to be out of your home for a while, you're going to want to get your mail forwarded and forward it to where it's most convenient for you now. You can get it forwarded. You can change your forwarding address later if things change. Probably the best way to arrange for forwarding, go to any post office, show them your ID, fill out the card, get your mail forwarded. Or if you want to do it online, you go to moversguide.usps.com. Now, if as to the mail that's in progress now, they are not delivering it, obviously, in a mandatory evacuation zone. You need to pick it up at the post office. If you're in Malibu, the post office has reopened. So you pick up your Malibu post office, your Malibu mail at the Malibu post office. If you're served by the Pacific Palisades post office, your mail is available at Rancho Park Post Office and Exxon Exposition Avenue. If you're usually delivered from the Topanga post office, your mail's at the Santa Monica post office on 7th Street. With that, let's take another question from the floor. Scott, who do we have?
Yes, sir. We have Christopher from the Palisades with a question about accessing FEMA services, especially for seniors. Christopher, you're on now.
I'm glad we still got Bob on the line. Go ahead.
I was talking about how the fact that I'm in the hospital and I wanted to make sure. I'm all alone. Everything's gone. My business, the Palisades Pizza, and the place where I was staying, everything's burned to the ground. But I'm in the hospital. I can't get out to go to these places. I can't go to the post office. I can't go to these places that you mentioned. The Pico address and the one on Wilshire. Right. I can't go there because I'm stuck at the hospital. I'm sure there's seniors and stuff that have the same problem. Where can they go to get help to muddle through all this?
Well, I'm hoping the post office would accept. You can go online and have your mail forwarded to a particular address.
Yeah,
and
I think it's overwhelmed at the moment because it's not working.
Yeah, it may take a day or two, but obviously, of all the times to be in the hospital, and I hope that your prognosis is good. You're the first person with a business in the Palisades to come to mention.
Yeah, our business was there
you
for
can. Do you also live in the Palisades as well?
Yes, I lived in an apartment in the Palisades that's burned to the ground.
Gotcha.
So it's all and outside.
I've outlined the help that's available for residents, and then in addition to, I don't know if you own your own real property there.
No.
Okay. So your business has a lease. You have a personal apartment lease. On the grant side, you'll be eligible for $43,600 to cover all the contents of your home. And on the business side, you can borrow up to $2 million, 4% interest, unless you're so strong that you could get a bank loan, in which case the government will charge you more because their program is really for people who can't get private credit. And my image is a pizzeria burned to the ground. My guess is that you're going to, for better or for worse, qualify for that 4% loan. 12 months is you don't have to pay for 12 months. Of course, the interest runs. And I'm hoping that you're able to rebuild your pizza operation. And I'm hoping that you can get out of the hospital. Yeah, go ahead.
Congressman, this is Supervisor Horvath. I just wanted
Yes.
to offer that as part of our emergency declaration, we are working to provide financial assistance to businesses. We are also, providing a range of services and supports for people. I am so sorry to hear that you are in the hospital, and I want to make sure that you get service directly. You can, if you're able to access online, you can go to recovery.lacounty.gov for the services, but I want to help you personally. If you can, I don't know if I'm able to get your contact information, but if you want to call my office at 213-974-3333 and let my team know that that you were on this town hall tonight, we'll make sure that someone is able to work directly with you to provide you that assistance.
I appreciate that. Like I was saying, I'm concerned for myself and trying to get back into business, but I know a lot of other, like the shoe guy across the way from us, elderly people that had businesses and elderly people that are going to need, a massive amount of help trying to navigate all this. Like I said, I tried to do the post office change of address, and that was a nightmare. It said they charge you $1.50 to do it, but I never got to that point. And I didn't get any confirmation email, and I tried it 3 times. Everything's just, it's difficult, and I can manage with computers, but I also know several people that own businesses. Like I said, the shoe guy across the way from our little pizza store, he's in his 70s, 80s, and there's no way that he's going to be able to navigate all this stuff. I don't know,
Well, we will personally have a member of our constituent advocacy team, our CAT team, reach out to you. Just give us a call, and we'll connect with you directly.
Right. Okay, I don't want to take any more of your time. I just
just wanted to say that a couple things. First of all, so sorry for your current situation and being in the hospital there. One of the things is if you phone our 1-800 number, even though the whole time's going to be long, you could talk to one of our applicant services reps on there, and they could walk through your application with you and help you with your application. Obviously, going online. The other thing we do is we send teams of people out to the field to provide services where they're at. So we've been out doing registration intake at the libraries. We went to the post office today because we're online there. And we send people to sometimes church groups on Sundays and other places. So if people have ideas where we could reach the community that are impacted, send them into the congressman's office. Congressman, give them to us, and we'll send our teams out there and register them in place, in addition to the recovery centers, which is more of a one-stop shop. So we've brought over 100 people here and have teams, and we're going out to the community, different places, to help people. If there are people in elderly care homes or other homes that we need to reach out to, let us know where those locations are, and we will get out there and make sure that we see them where they need our help.
And I want to repeat our office phone number, 818-501-9200. I realize we're spewing forward all kinds of other phone numbers and websites and whatever. Tomorrow morning, give us a call. We'll put you in touch with Lindsey or FEMA or help you ourselves. And so if you don't remember anything else, 818-501-9200. We've got a question from Joey Ben-Giat from Woodland Hills. What is the financial impact of this horrific incident? It's so hard to estimate this at this time. We don't have the information, etc. The highest estimate is from AccuWeather, $250 to $275 billion. Plus, between this fire and the Eaton fire, more than 20 people have died, and we may find more as we are able to explore each building. So this is the clearly the most expensive fire in the history of the country. It looks and the most expensive disaster to hit Los Angeles, bigger than the Northridge earthquake. Yet, I mean, we're still at the preliminary stages, and we might see different estimates. It's hard to know. Let's take another question. Scott?
Yes, sir. We have Luke on the line from Encino with a question about risk mitigation moving forward. Luke, you're on the line.
Hello there. I actually
Hello.
want to just start off by saying that I'm really feeling for all the people I'm hearing. You know, fortunately, we weren't in evacuation areas, so we didn't have to deal with what a lot of these other people are dealing with. But I did want to talk about moving forward because, you know, there was a lot of rain for a number of years. It built up a lot of vegetation that then dried out and created a lot of fuel that allowed the fire to grow the way that it did. And I'm not really aware of what efforts we make to address that on a regular annual basis. But what I would like to raise is we have a family home in Montana, the state of Montana, that we've had for decades. And out there was a grant program. And my neighborhood got together and we applied for the grant, and the state covered 75% of the costs for fire mitigation efforts. And so for the last couple of months, we've had crews going around the neighborhood up there, clearing out the deadwood, thinning out the trees, and basically taking a bunch of prescribed measures to mitigate fire risk. And as a property owner, I had to chip in 25%, but I was happy to do it, and I was incentivized to do it because the program was set up. So I don't know what California has. I certainly haven't heard of anything along those lines or what they might do, because I think brush needs to be cleared away from communities. There needs to be a certain amount of clearance. And I think, you know, the idea that brush had been growing and just building up over years without any real effort to clear any of it is a recipe for disaster.
We do need to take to focus more on the brush. One thing that's different from Montana is here we may have, 10, 20, 30 acres of just brushland, but that's usually governmentally owned, as it is in the Santa Monica, in many parts of the Santa Monica Mountains. It's more of a Montana thing that you have a private owner who owns 30 acres. What I would say is two things. One is the particular part of Montana I'm in, because it's on a lake, people don't have huge acreage like that. That's not. But I do understand that it's different. But we also have a much bigger tax base in California. Like if I told you my relative property taxes in California versus what I'm putting down in Montana, the fact that they could come up with a program like this at the state level because they made it a priority. This makes a lot of sense. Absolutely. And this actually leads me into my in our final survey question, because what we do here is go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to tell you that this is Bob Fenton. 20% of all the funding FEMA brings here gets put aside exactly for what the gentleman's talking about, which is mitigation funds to build resiliency and prevent future risk. A lot of that is done in fuels management. It's also home hardening for previous homes that don't meet the current codes and standards. So I agree with the gentleman. There's a number of programs that the state sponsors every year, and funding that will be available from this disaster, where the federal government pays 75% of the cost and 25% between state and local cost share. And we look forward to that. The state manages the priorities for those projects, and fuels management, home hardening, and other fire mitigation measures have been part of those in past years.
So how do I, as an individual, citizen, get involved in helping make sure that effort is made and that it's directed as it needs to be? I mean, you can feel a little helpless in this situation.
No, definitely. And I think through your local community, through the congressman, and getting a local community sponsor to sponsor your community for bringing those funds in there to do those type of mitigation measures is where they're. So your voice, what you're doing right now, and you have a lot of you have local officials on here, the congressman on here, and will that voice will help us and help them to leverage those funds to prioritize it toward those type of projects.
Thank you.
Normally that money would go to state or local government, And I do think you do need to make your voice heard, because that money can be spent just on government-owned property, or some of it's on government-owned property, and then some of it is made available to private property owners to participate in something like what you saw in Montana.
Congressman, it's Lonny. I have some information on programs that might be able to help. There's fire safe councils, which can help organize and give avenues to grants within the state of California, as well as the National Fire Protection Agency has a program called FireWise that you can search on the internet. Both of those are avenues that will assist communities in fuel reduction, home hardening, and have access to grants. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, and this leads us into our last survey question, and I'm going to say let's assume for the purpose of this question that there is no government money. It's the homeowner has to do it themselves. And the question is, should we enforce home site vegetation clearance strictly? Which would mean if you don't clear it, you get a notice. You still don't clear it, the government clears it. They send you a bill. You don't pay the bill. It's a lien on your home. That's strict enforcement of brush clearance on your private property, assuming that the government isn't paying any of the costs. If you believe in that strictness, +1. If you think, well, we should have inspections and letters, but no government contractor should be messing with my bushes, press 2. So that's without physically changing things at your house. And then if you don't think we should have this program imposed on homeowners, press 3. Strict for 1, inspections and letters exclusively for 2. Don't do any of that for 3. Let's take another call from the floor.
Okay, Congressman, we have a call from Deborah in Sherman Oaks about how the next administration might act. Deborah in Sherman Oaks.
Hi, can you hear me?
Uh-huh.
Hi. So
I can hear you.
I think some of this was answered earlier, a little bit earlier, and I know, we don't know what the future is going to bring, and you can't say with surety what you're going to be going to do until you see the votes that you are faced with.
Right.
But the question I had is, I don't have. Can the incoming administration undo some of what the Biden administration has pledged already?
As far as what's been pledged so far, I don't think they'll be able to undo it. That's basically the close to 100% of the governmental cost to fight the fire and rebuild. And it's what I think are pretty inadequate amounts of money in terms of grants to the underinsured. But it is at least some money, $43,600, another $43,600. And the SBA loan programs are part of statute. You're entitled to it. This is a disaster. We would expect beyond that we are able to get grants so that people who have lost their entire home and that are completely uninsured can do better than the $43,600 times once or even twice. And that will be a decision that Congress needs to make. In addition, for FEMA to do what the law requires and what California is entitled to, we gave them a ton of money to cover 2025 disasters in general. Little did we know that this thing was going to happen. We provided that money in December. I haven't looked at the FEMA budget to see whether it can provide what is the basic entitlement relief with the money given them. If so, it'll use up everything and there won't be any money for any other disaster in the country until the end of the fiscal year. So there will be, I think the politics will allow FEMA to do its basic work as we've outlined, but it's going to be difficult to do more, particularly to provide more help for the uninsured homeowners and businesses. and there will be an attempt to link it to Washington determining our water and our land management system, or to link it to the debt limit, which we could have a whole town hall about. So I think most of what we've described here is going to happen, and I think for us to get any more, we're going to have to build support in the country. Trump is one of the least predictable politicians. You can't even predict what he's going to do by what he said last week. But the one thing that is predictable is he'll do what polls well. And we've got to demonstrate to this country, not just the Palisades, but Altadena it needs help and deserves help. And your members of Congress voted for this kind of help for Hawaii and Louisiana. As to the poll question, 64% of you are for strict enforcement. 27% are for enforcement in the sense of getting a letter and an inspection, but not the government coming onto your property and removing a bush. And 9% think that we shouldn't be doing any of this at all. I think we have time for one more question, and that would wrap it up. We're going to have a town hall sometime in February. I'm sure we'll get a few questions relating to the Palisades fire, but that'll be a general town hall, at least as we have it planned now. We'll see how things develop. So let's take one more ultimate question, and then I've got to say thank you so much for participating in this town hall. What's our last question?
Yes, sir. We have Stephen from Malibu asking about firefighting aircraft. Stephen, you're on now.
Thank you very much. Considering that our future really is just continued problems with drought and strange weather, climate change, I'm just reading a story that California, or I guess Los Angeles, has only been renting for 90-day periods aircraft, the Super Scooper aircraft. I'm curious what we can do from a congressional standpoint, a bill, something, so that California will have its own fleet of heavy lift aircraft converted as Super Scoopers, maybe stationed at various AMG, Air Force Base, Navy bases from San Diego north, considering that it's going to be an entire regional issue. Maybe we can also extend that to different states, and I guess as an adjunct to this, creating more reservoirs for easier access throughout the state, which would also help with our water problems. This is $1 billion spent in this particular item would have tens of multiples of billions of dollars saved just in this one incident. Thank you.
As to firefighting aircraft, we do have a lot of them owned by state and local government here in California. Of course, more were brought in. We do have to evaluate whether we need to beef up the California-based fleet. I'm grateful to other states and even Quebec for sending us additional aircraft. That's pursuant to mutual aid agreements that we have, where it's already agreed in advance how they get reimbursed for their costs. I was able to get 4 of these large aircraft turned over to the California National Guard, the Channel Islands Air Wing, back 20 years ago. I haven't verified. I know that those exact kinds of planes have been used, and I haven't verified whether the ones I got are the ones they're flying. You don't know what happens to a particular aircraft over 20 years, but we do need. It's tough to decide how to make decisions, but from now on, I think we have to learn from this. Firefighting is number one. Budgetary concerns are number 2, and all the other issues are number 2. But we need to. And it's not a matter of changing your mind. When new events present themselves, you've got to adjust your behavior. And Mother Nature has taught us that fires can be worse than we previously imagined. I want to thank Lonny and Bob and Lindsey for joining us here. I look forward to the next telephone town hall. Now, you can send me a note at bradsherman.house.gov. At the end of this call, you're going to hear a beep. At that point, you can leave me a message. I'll be listening tomorrow. Please let me know what's on your mind. Also, please give me your email address, even if I already have it. It's weird rules we have in the House. So please leave your email address so I can keep you informed under House rules as we go forward. Thank you very much for participating in this town hall, and I look forward to doing everything I can to serve you, particularly those of you who are affected by this fire. Thank you.